If you've ever struggled to lose weight as a woman over 40, then you've probably already suspected that your hormones might be to blame. And if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, then you've probably already picked up on the fact that I'm a little bit obsessed with hormones and the role that they play in our overall health and well being. Because while I'm not a doctor, I am a woman who struggled with my weight for almost 10 years before I finally figured out that the real secret to sustainable weight loss was never cutting calories or getting more exercise, but just figuring out how to balance my hormones. And it almost sounds way too simple to actually be true, but it is. And that's why today I just want to get back to basics for a minute and talk about some of the best ways to get your hormones back on track so that you can lose weight faster and easier. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Soukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ruth Soukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And I am also a woman on a mission to help other women transform your health, because it wasn't all that long ago that I was the one who was really struggling to lose weight, struggling to get control of my food addictions, and struggling with a whole bunch of health issues that were all related to insulin resistance and hormonal imbalance. My body was totally inflamed. I had headaches almost every single day. I was tired all the time, and I was constantly getting sick. Honestly, I felt like crap pretty much every day. And when I look back, I think the worst part is I don't even think I realized how bad I felt. I thought it was normal. I thought it was just part of getting older. Thought I was just stressed out. So while I was worried about the fact that no matter how hard I tried to lose weight, the number on the scale kept creeping up, I never really connected all of my other health issues to my weight gain and to my hormones. I didn't realize that it basically all came down to my hormones, right? And the fact that my hormones were totally out of whack. And chances are, if you're listening to this podcast because you're looking for a better way to lose weight and get healthy for life, your hormones are out of whack too. And that's why today we're going to talk about what you can do about it. But first, real quickly, if this is your first time listening, then at some point, you'll probably want to go back and listen to the first couple episodes of this podcast, because I go into a lot more detail about my own health journey and some of the research that I've done into the science of weight loss and how it's actually possible to heal your body from the inside out. And I'm not going to rehash all of that today. You might get a little recap, but suffice to say that if you're here because you're trying to lose weight and get healthy, then you're in the right place. And hopefully you're going to love this podcast because it's all about helping you do just that. And if you haven't already grabbed a copy of my free starter guide, then you might want to do that too. It is called Flip the Switch, and it is super helpful. And it will basically explain in detail why it feels like your metabolism has stopped working and what you can do about it. So if you want to grab that, just go to thinlicious.com/guide and I will send you a free digital copy right away. Once again, that's thinlicious.com/guide. And I will put that in the show notes as well. But in the meantime, let's dive into today's topic and talk about some of the simple but powerful things that you can do to help get your hormones back on track so that you can start losing weight faster and easier and really just start feeling your best again. Because like I said, hormones are a big deal. They are a really big deal. And if you are a woman, then you may have already figured that out, because we do tend to be a little bit more in tune with our hormones and how they affect us. But for the most part, I don't know that we always really understand them all that well, or how they actually work, or how they can get out of balance and cause all sorts of problems for us. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that we do on a daily basis, probably things that we don't even think twice about, can actually have a really big impact on our hormones, and not in a good way. Things like what we eat and how much we eat and how often we eat and how much sleep we get and how much stress we're under, and even the products that we use and the chemicals we are exposed to every day. All of these things have a huge effect on our hormones and can cause them to get out of whack and out of balance and just make it so much harder for us to lose weight and feel our best. And so that's why I think it's important to kind of start this conversation by understanding a little bit more about what hormones actually are and how they work and what they do in our bodies. And then we can talk about some of the practical things that you can start doing to help get them back on track, because knowledge is power, right? I always say that. And the more that you understand what's actually happening in your body, the more you're going to be able to make informed choices that are going to help you get the results that you want. So let's start with the basics. What are hormones exactly? Well, hormones are basically chemical messengers that are produced by various glands in our body. And they play a big role in regulating all sorts of different functions and processes, from metabolism to digestion to mood and sleep and reproduction. In fact, just about everything that happens in your body is controlled or influenced by your hormones in some way. And because they have such a big impact on so many different things, it's really important that your hormones are in balance, that they're not too high or too low, and that they're all working together the way that they're supposed to, because they are all interconnected, right? They're all part of the same endocrine system. But the problem is that a lot of the time they're not working the way that they should. In fact, it's estimated that as many as 80% of women over the age of 40 have at least some form of hormonal imbalance, whether you realize it or not. And that is a big deal, because when your hormones are out of balance, it causes all sorts of problems, from weight gain to fatigue to depression to anxiety to hot flashes to low sex drive to infertility. The list goes on and on and on. And again, the thing that you really need to understand about hormones is that they all work together in a very delicate, very intricate system. It's sort of like this big, complicated puzzle. And when one piece of the puzzle is out of place or not working the way that it's supposed to, it throws the whole system out of balance. So even if you think you're only dealing with one specific hormonal issue, the reality is that it's always affecting a whole bunch of other hormones too. And so that is why when it comes to getting your hormones back on track, it's usually not enough to just focus on one specific hormone or one specific issue. You have to take sort of a holistic approach to look at all the different factors that could be contributing to your hormonal imbalance, and then try to address as many of them as possible. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we dive into that, I think it's really important to understand a little bit more about how our hormones can actually affect our ability to lose weight, because that is the reality, right? When our hormones are out of balance, it makes it so much harder for us to shed those extra pounds no matter what we do. So how exactly do hormones affect weight loss? Well, in a lot of different ways, actually. So for one thing, your hormones are the thing that are playing the biggest role in regulating your metabolism, which is the process by which your body converts the food that you eat into energy. And if your metabolism isn't working the way that it's supposed to, then you're not going to burn as many calories, and your body's not going to burn fat. And that is what makes it harder to lose weight. Hormones also affect the way that your body stores and uses energy. When your hormones are in balance, your body can easily switch back and forth between burning glucose or sugar for energy and burning fat for energy, depending on what's available at any given time. But when your hormones are out of whack, it makes it way harder for your bodies to access and burn fat, and way easier for you to store it, right? And that's the biggest thing for most women. And because that's specifically related to losing weight. When your hormones are out of whack, specifically when your insulin is elevated, which for most women it is, insulin is a hormone, then your body goes into fat storing mode. It will not burn fat. So if you're trying to lose weight and you can't, big problem. And then there's the fact that hormones also have a big impact on our appetite and on our cravings for certain foods. When your hormones are out of whack, it makes you feel hungry all the time. It causes you to have intense cravings for sugar and for carbohydrates. And obviously, if you're eating more and not able to control your cravings, and especially if you're having these intense cravings for sugar and carbohydrates, you're eating more and more sugar and more carbohydrates, that is going to make it harder to lose weight. It's like this vicious cycle. So as you can see, the hormones are playing this huge role in your ability to lose weight. And when they're all out of whack, it's having all this impact, this domino effect impact on so many different things inside your body. But the good news is that there are things that you can do to get your hormones back on track. So that's what I want to talk about next. And I just have to give this disclaimer because I think it's important, but let me take a quick second to remind you that I am not a doctor. I'm not a health professional. Everything I am sharing with you is based on my own research, my own personal experience, and also the experience of the thousands of women who have gone through our TAS program. And while I truly believe that the advice I am giving you is safe and healthy and beneficial, and it is very well researched, it is always a good idea to talk to a functional doctor. I wouldn't just go to a traditional doctor who's just going to put you on a bunch of pills. Go talk to a functional doctor before making big changes to your diet or lifestyle, especially if you have any specific health concerns or conditions. Okay? Got it? Good. So with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the things that you can do to help get your hormones back on track for faster and easier weight loss. And the first thing, this is not going to surprise you because if I have said it once on this podcast, I have said it 1,000 times. In fact, sometimes I feel a little bit like a broken record. But the reality is that the very best thing that you can do to start balancing your hormones is detox your body from sugar. But what that really means is that as you detox, you need to replace the sugar with a healthy, whole foods-based diet that is low in sugar, very low in sugar, low in refined carbohydrates, which your body basically thinks is sugar, and high in healthy fats and protein. And like I said, this probably doesn't come as a big surprise if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, because I do talk about the benefits of a low sugar and protein and healthy fat-rich diet all the time. Right? All the time, and for good reason. It really is the best and only way to heal your body from the inside out and to get your hormones back on track. Because the reality, and this is where you need to understand, right? All these hormones are connected. So when we talk about hormonal imbalance, women immediately go to, oh, it must be my estrogen and my progesterone. But really, most of the hormonal imbalance that we experience is caused by insulin and specifically insulin resistance. And that's when our bodies become less sensitive to insulin and have a harder time regulating our blood sugar levels. And insulin resistance is a big deal because not only does it make it harder for us to lose weight, it also leads to all of these other hormonal issues like thyroid problems and estrogen dominance and adrenal fatigue. And that it's the big domino that makes all the other dominoes fall, and it puts everything else out of whack. But the good news is that insulin resistance is also something that can be reversed. And one of the best ways, in fact, the best way to do that is by changing the way that you eat. When you eat a lot of carbohydrates / sugar, right? Especially highly processed and highly refined carbohydrates and sugar, the more processed, the more refined it is, the more it's going to cause your blood sugar to spike, which is what causes your body to release more insulin. And if you are eating this way all the time, then your body is constantly having to produce more and more insulin. That's what's leading to insulin resistance. And most people have insulin resistance, right? Because our standard American diet is basically all sugar and refined carbohydrates and chemicals that are directly causing insulin resistance. I think it's estimated that 90 to 95% of the population has some form of insulin resistance right now. But you maybe didn't start noticing the problem until it started impacting your other hormones, right? Until your other hormones started changing as you get older, you get into your 40s and 50s, you start going through perimenopause and menopause, and you're having all these other hormonal changes, then all of a sudden the insulin resistance becomes like front and center, and it starts affecting your body and affecting your metabolism more and more and more, right? Because it's all connected. But when you start to detox from sugar and you start replacing that sugar and those refined carbohydrates with nutrient-dense protein and healthy fat, something really amazing happens in your body. Your blood sugar levels stabilize, your body doesn't have to produce as much insulin, and that means that over time, your insulin resistance will start to improve and your hormones will start to get back in balance. You'll start to become more metabolically flexible. And not only that, eating this way is going to also help reduce inflammation in your body, which is another big factor in hormonal imbalance. So that is a win-win. And so if you're not already doing so, the best and most, if you take one thing out of this episode, start detoxing your body from sugar. Get off the sugar. You have to get off the sugar. There's no other way to do it. Sorry. I know you like pasta. I don't care. There's no other way to do it. And I will say though, if you need help, then you are in luck because we have an amazing beginner program for you that is called the 10-day sugar detox. And it's really, really good. It makes things so much easier because you're really understanding the science behind it. It's helping you to kind of cope through that detox process. If you want access to our 10-day sugar detox, go to thinlicious.com/detox. Once again, that's thinlicious.com/detox. It's not free, but it's very reasonably priced and it's totally worth it. And of course, I will put the link to that in the show notes as well. So that is the first and by far the most important thing. You got to detox from sugar, but that is really just the beginning. The second thing that you can do to help get your hormones back on track is make sure that you're getting enough sleep. Sleep more. I hate it when people say that, like, just get more sleep, right? Because it's so much easier said than done, especially if you are busy. But it really is so important. In fact, not getting enough sleep has a huge impact on all of your hormones and will make it harder for you to lose weight. And that is because when we don't get enough sleep, it's causing our bodies to produce more and more of the stress hormone cortisol, which is contributing to all sorts of problems, from increased inflammation to insulin resistance to weight gain. And not only that, when you're tired, you're also way more likely to make poor food choices and to overeat because your body is trying to compensate for the lack of energy. So if you're struggling to get enough sleep, then I would highly recommend that as you're starting to eat healthy, you also make sleep a priority. Try to get at least 7 to 8 hours a night. And, I don't want to make this a whole episode about sleep. Like, there's so much good information about how you can improve your sleep, but most of it just requires a little bit of discipline and intentionality, right? Things like creating a bedtime routine, meditating, avoiding screens and bright lights for a few hours before bed, making your bedroom cool and dark and quiet. All those things can help you get better quality sleep, but make it a priority. So that's the second thing, is get more sleep. The third thing that you can do to help get your hormones back on track, and all of these things really should happen simultaneously, right? I'm sort of putting them in order of, I guess, effectiveness, what's going to make the biggest impact. The first one is detoxing from sugar. That is by far going to make the biggest impact, but sort of in this order, be working on these things because your stress levels is the next thing, right? Reducing your stress. And I don't know about you, but this is one piece of advice that always kind of drives me crazy. Like you can just turn off stress just like that, right? If it was that easy, you wouldn't be stressed. And if you're a type A person like me, like a little bit high strung, lots of stuff on your plate, then just the thought of trying to eliminate stress makes you stress about being stressed. You know what I mean? It's like this vicious cycle. So while we may not be able to eliminate stress completely, of course, just like sleep, there are some things that you can do to help manage it better. And that is important because chronic stress also leads to increased inflammation and a higher cortisol level, which, as I would just said, causes all sorts of other hormonal issues. So what can you do to reduce your stress? Well, there's like the basic things that everybody says, right? Relaxation and yoga and meditation. And I struggle. I don't know. I struggle with that kind of stuff. Like I have a hard time sitting still. But I do find it super helpful to use an app to guide me with this kind of stuff because I think my brain just sort of goes crazy if I'm left to my own devices. The one that I really like right now, the app that I really like, is actually called the Hallow app, which is a a religious app. It's a guided prayer app. So it's not exactly meditation, it's prayer. But I find that like just like allows me to actually calm down and just sit and be quiet for a while. So that's a great one. If you want something that's not religious, more meditation, there's tons of options. Just look in the App Store. But even just going for a walk or finding some quiet time for yourself every day can make a really big difference. There is something incredibly healing about being outside in nature that is proven to lower your cortisol levels, right? It's not enough to just walk on a treadmill. That won't lower your cortisol, but going outside, being in nature, not just trying to like push through something, but actually just enjoying the sunlight, the daylight, the fresh air, that will actually, that is proven to lower your cortisol levels. But on a more practical level, because this is something I really struggle with, the keeping my stress managed, is I honestly think that the thing that helps me relieve stress on a day-to-day basis is establishing habits and routines that help to eliminate some of my decision fatigue and make my busy weeks go smoother. And so maybe this sounds silly, but the biggest one for me has been getting into a really good groove with meal planning and food prep. Because for me, dinner is a huge stressor every day, right? Oh, what are we going to eat every day? So now what I do is every Sunday afternoon, I sit down with our family calendar. I plan out the calendar, make sure I know what's going on for the whole family for the whole week. I plan our meals. And then I make a grocery list, and then I go to Publix, and then I will usually do a little bit of food prep. I make snacks for the week, or I prep my bone broth, or I grill up a bunch of chicken and roast vegetables to make lunch bowls. And then that way I don't even really have to think about it for the rest of the week. And not only that, like there's something knowing that I have a plan and I've already got the groceries and everything's already ready. It actually helps me to enjoy cooking the rest of the week. So then that my meal time, instead of feeling like stressful at the end of a busy work day, it becomes my decompression time after work. I pour myself a glass of wine and I turn on some music, and I actually really enjoy that time in the kitchen because I already have a plan and everything I need is on hand. And it's just kind of like, oh, I'm going to cook a delicious meal for my family and then we can sit down and eat. So maybe that would work for you too, or maybe it's something else. But I do think that having certain routines and rhythms built into your life can really help reduce a lot of stress. If it's just like every day is a scramble, that is stressful to me. So that is the third thing, watch your stress levels. The fourth thing that you can do to help get your hormones back on track is to avoid toxins and chemicals as much as possible, both in your food and in your environment. And this is huge because so many of the products that we're using on a daily basis, from cleaning products to personal care products to the food that we eat, are just packed with all sorts of harmful chemicals that are actually having a really big impact on our hormones. There's something that's called endocrine disruptors, which are the chemicals that can interfere with the way that our hormones work. And they are found in just about everything these days, sadly. And while it's pretty hard to completely avoid all of these chemicals because they're just everywhere, there are definitely steps you can start taking to minimize your exposure. So the most obvious place to start is with the food that you eat, because obviously cutting out sugar is super important, which we've already talked about. And if you start focusing on eating whole, nutrient-dense foods, right, shopping from the outer edges of your store, not eating processed garbage, you will by default end up cutting out a lot of the processed junk from your diet. But it's still everywhere. The seed oils, the preservatives, the dyes, the other toxic chemicals, it's in your dressings, your sauces, your condiments, your peanut butter, even food that's marketed as healthy or low carb or keto. You got to be really careful about it. So for me, a good rule of thumb is when you look at an ingredient label, that if you can't pronounce it or you don't actually know what it is, you probably shouldn't be putting it in your body. And then if you want to take things a step further, you can start switching to more natural and non-toxic cleaning products and personal care products, and then reducing your use of plastic products, even the containers that you're storing your food in, the bags, all of that can be full of harmful chemicals. And for most people, including myself, this is something that you kind of do over time as you restock, right? It doesn't have to be all at once. Every bit helps. Rome wasn't built in a day, but eliminating toxins and chemicals from your life, that is the fourth thing. And then the fifth and final thing I want to talk about today is to just make sure that you're getting enough of the right nutrients, especially when it comes to vitamins and minerals. Because the reality is that a lot of us are walking around with nutrient deficiencies, and that can have a big impact on our hormones and really on our overall health. And the best way to do this really is by eating a diet that is as nutrient dense as possible with lots of red meat, which is the most nutrient dense food that you can eat. It's the most nutrient dense food on the planet, besides maybe organ meat, if that comes from red meat, right? Along with fatty fish and plenty of healthy fat, vegetables, berries. And if this is how you start eating most of the time, you're getting almost all of the nutrients that you need directly from your food, which is exactly where you should be getting them. You want to be getting them from your food. But there are still a few things that you may want to supplement simply because our modern food supply doesn't supply them the way that they used to. The biggest one probably that most people are deficient in is magnesium. We've actually done a whole podcast episode on that. But this plays such a key role in hormonal balance, and it's also super important for managing stress, for reducing inflammation. And most people are not getting enough magnesium from our diets because the soil that is used now is depleted of magnesium. And so, especially if you're not eating lots of leafy greens or nuts and seeds, you might not be getting enough magnesium. You might want to supplement. I supplement it every single day. I put it in my water. I use a liquid magnesium. And from the doctor that was on this podcast episode, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but we will include it in the show notes. I use the magnesium that she has developed. I ordered on Amazon. It's great. We'll include the link again in the show notes if you want to get that. But supplementing with magnesium can make a huge difference. Vitamin D is another big one. It's actually more of a hormone than a vitamin, and most people are deficient in it, especially anyone who lives in a cooler climate is not spending enough time outdoors. So getting more time in the sun every single day or supplementing with vitamin D3 can be really helpful. And then other nutrients that you might want to consider adding are omega-3 fatty acids if you're not eating a lot of fatty fish, because it's really hard to get and most people are depleted of omega-3, right? Our balance of omega-3 to omega-6 is off. Vitamin B12 might be a good one, especially if you're not eating tons of meat. And zinc is another one. So getting those essential vitamins and minerals can really help. Whew. And I know that was a lot of information. I just threw a lot of stuff at you. You might have to go back and take notes. And I know that it can also feel a little bit overwhelming to make all of these changes at once. So my advice would be to just start small and focus on one thing at a time, right? And then just keep building and keep adding. My health journey has been going on for years now. And where I started, even when I look at, what I used to eat at the beginning, when I was really just focused on cutting out sugar and getting more healthy fat, to what I eat now, where I'm so much more focused on really eating clean as much as possible. It's been a journey over a course of years. So that might for you mean starting with the sugar detox. And once you feel like you have that under control, you can start working on your sleep and then your stress levels and so on. And the other thing that I would just say is be patient with yourself and the process. Healing your body and getting your hormones back on track is not something that will happen overnight. You didn't get to where you are overnight. It takes time. But I promise you that if you stick with it and you're consistent and you keep making those small changes and taking those steps in the right direction, you will start to see results. You will start to feel better. You will start to have more energy and you will start losing weight more easily and you will be able to maintain that weight loss. It is all connected. And really, at the end of the day, for me, that's what this podcast is all about, helping you to feel better so that you can live better. It's just this holistic approach to health and wellness and understanding that it's not just about what you eat or how much you exercise or even how much you weigh. It's about feeling good, about getting your hormones back in balance, about healing your body from the inside out and making sustainable changes that you can actually stick with for the long haul. So I hope this was helpful for you and that it gave you some good ideas for how to get your hormones back on track or how to even take it a step further. If you've already gone through the sugar detox process, but you haven't really been thinking about the other things, then there's always a way. And if you have any questions or if there's anything else that you'd like me to cover in a future episode, then please let me know. You can find me on Instagram at @RuthSukup, or you can always send me an email at hello@thinlicious.com. And if you are enjoying this podcast and finding it helpful, I would love it if you would subscribe or follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. And then I will see you back here for another new episode very soon.